It's your Dockmaster Michael Attilano, and you are listening to The Starboard. Joining me today are two legendary songwriters, formerly of Climax Blues Band, and now on their current project, Holt and Jones, here to talk about the release of their brand new album, Shadowman. Welcome, Derek Holt and Richard Jones. How you doing, gentlemen?
Good evening.
Hello.
And good morning, as it is here. And
yeah.
good evening, as it is there. Or the other way around. I don't know. I'm very confused.
I think it's morning for you, isn't it, Michael? Morning?
It's 10 a.m. And who's in Spain? Which one's in Spain? Okay.
Derek's in Spain.
What time is it there?
7 o'clock evening.
And it's 6 o'clock in the evening in London.
There's so many questions that I can start off with. So one of the main things that I want to ask you personally is about Miles Copeland. Miles Copeland obviously was very famous for the band that he brought over. We don't need to say their name. There's a lot of backstories with that band, and I found it interesting that he produced Climax Blues Band. So what was that like in the beginning?
Well, he managed the band, really. How we met, the band were going down to the Marquee Club in London, and he was on the street corner, and he shouted through the window, "Hey, I want to manage you guys." And it was basically just started from there. We had already known people like Wishbone Ash and Caravan and Curved Air. They were all on Miles's sort of management label, so he took us under his wing.
But the funny thing is, you see, I mean, at this time, I wasn't in Climax Blues. I'd been in it at the beginning. I'd then gone off to university. And when I came out of university, I joined a band that was a kind of cult multimedia band, called Principal Edward's Magic Theatre. It was a kind of cult band in the UK. And we eventually met up with an agent who we'd been with various agencies, but one agent who got really into us, was actually Miles's brother. And he brought Miles along to one of our gigs, and Miles started managing us. And I think I was aware that he was also managing Climax, but of course he wouldn't have known that I'd been in Climax. And so, in actual fact, at one time, in probably about 73 and 4, both bands were being managed by Climax, which meant that at that time, I know that we both shared the bill in various, colleges and things like that. So we'd meet up, wouldn't we? And I remember at one of these gigs, me and Derek have always been good mates, and I can remember saying to him, "See you on Top of the Pops, mate." Little thinking, Top of the Pops was the program, the TV program where, that's where you wanted to be. That's where you wanted to be ever since you were, 13.
Can you describe the landscape at that time? I know people were starting to experiment with different sound. Was there any of that going on at that time?
No, it was all analog and tape machines, tape recorders.
No synthesizers. In fact, it was only at the very end of when I was with Climax that there were any keyboards beyond having a Fender Rhodes or a clavinet. So this previous band I was in had an electronic organ that they'd been around for some time.
A Vox Continental, remember those?
Yeah, right. This was actually a Haven, but with a similar thing. In fact, which we shipped out to the States to record Stamp album. So, on Sky High, those chords at the beginning, they're all played on this Haven organ, which had these strange sounds, and the sound on some others which completely escaped me. But there's certainly nothing synthesized.
In those days as well, if a song needed to be edited, you used to have to splice the tape at a certain place and then join it up with sellotape or something. It's the only
Yeah,
way you could do it. Whereas
which
today with digital, it's a fantastic tool. You can
which
just
happened
cut and
to
paste.
it didn't happen that often with us, did it? But because we could actually get through a whole take without screwing it up. But there's
Well,
a
yeah,
couple of
we used to be able
I
to
know.
play stuff and rehearse and get the arrangements right and then record them. We were
But of
quite
course,
lucky in that
once you
respect.
know the sound of that, once you know the sound of an edit, because there's always something that is going to be wrong. The tonal quality might change very slightly, or reverb might not, go over the gap. I mean, I know there's a bit in Running Out of Time that does it. I know exactly where it is because my piano chord suddenly cuts off, and I think I would never have done that. And of course, you can hear it. You can hear it all over Beatle records, early on as well, where they spliced two tapes together. It's a
Another example is the
different age,
Eagles, isn't
Michael.
it? Hotel California. There's a great edit on that where they put another verse on at the end.
Is that the edit where it goes from 4/4 into 16/3?
Not that one, but it just goes absolutely dead,
Yeah.
and it's great. It's perfect.
When your alibis, mirrors on the ceiling.
Michael's either choking to death there or he's coughing. I can't quite make up my mind.
No, it's funny because it's true. It's funny because it's true because a lot of the times, especially in my age group, you just get used to it. So
Yeah.
you don't notice it because it's just in the lexicon now. Songs, you hear them everywhere now, grocery stores and all that stuff. And so when you see it in the lexicon and it's just part of people's behavior now, it's kind of funny. And that's why
Well,
I'm
it is a
chuckling.
whole different ballgame. I mean, right from the thing of how do you get to make a record? I mean, now when anybody can make a record, you might not ever get heard, but anybody can do it. Whereas there, the only way you could make a record was getting signed up by a record company. So it was a big deal. I mean, the A&R men of record companies, they were the big gatekeeper. And without getting through them, you don't make a record. Without making a record, you don't get onto the radio. Very, very few radio stations. Only a couple of TV stations, certainly in Britain, not in the States, but in Britain. So very, very difficult to get any kind of exposure. Quite a different scene now.
Well, I noticed with Gold Plated, specifically that album, it seems like every song was different than the next. It was almost like you're trying to see where you're going to land for an audience. That was records of the time. For instance, Motown records in the 70s, and one side was dance oriented, and then you turn it over and it was ballads. Kool and the Gang, 1979, they released 3 songs were just all instrumental, and then the other 3 were disco. And hey, the disco ones were successful, then great, let's record a whole bunch of celebration type of songs with that same tempo and beat.
We recorded that album. We hadn't written Couldn't Get It Right. It was Miles' suggestion. I think the record company as well. They said we could do with something a little bit more commercial. Can you go back into the studio and come up with something else? So that's exactly what we did. We hadn't got Couldn't Get It Right written, but we basically went in for 4 or 5 days to Air Studios in London and came up with Couldn't Get It Right.
And I kept on looking for a sign in the middle of the night, but I couldn't see the light. No, I couldn't see the light. I kept on looking for a way to take me through the night. Couldn't get it right. I couldn't get it right.
Of course, we delivered the song to the record company and it became a hit. But the producer of the album, Mike Vernon, well, he got quite annoyed about it because he said, "You never told me you got that song." And we said, well, we hadn't. It wasn't even written. So it was just one of those lucky moments in the studio where everything aligned, the planets aligned, and we came up with the goods.
I thought it was interesting what you said about each song sounding as if it was came from a different place. We rehearsed for some time in preparation for the albums. At least we got familiar with the kind of the musical themes we were going to do. It didn't mean all the lyrics were worked out. The arrangements definitely weren't out. But you get to where it is just by playing. I mean, there's no other way. You can't do it like you can do it now, where let's put some drums down and then let's try and record 4 bars and get it right, and then change it all. You can't. You had to get your arrangements sorted out. I mean, a good example of that, I think, not on gold plated, but say on stamp album, would be using the power.
Oh, let me tell you, you got to use the power that is in your hands. You got to put it all together, working for a better land. Using the power, using the power. You gotta use the power that is in your hands.
That was actually a riff that I brought to the band, but I played it on the guitar. And all the time when we were rehearsing in the UK, I played this riff on the guitar. Also, where it's placed in the bar, where the drums would come in, was quite different. And it wasn't until we got to the States, for some reason, I just went and sat on a Fender Rhodes and started playing it. When I started playing it on that, John Cuffley, the drummer, came in at the wrong time, and suddenly the whole thing changed. And we thought, oh, that sounds good. And so that then became that song. And then, it evolved from there.
Still sounds good to me, that.
Yeah, it does. Rocks along a bit, doesn't it?
We watched performances in the Yacht Rock group before they took away that capability, but we would notice the live performances that came after were different because the delivery was different and the approach.
Which is why, the studio I always found really exciting. Little pieces of magic, as Richard usually says, something will happen that's always sends you in a different direction.
Yeah, you've got to be open to that, haven't you? You've got to be the sort of band and the sort of musicians who are able to cope with that. It takes a bit of confidence in your playing and confidence in the rest of the band.
What you guys were saying about anyone can record, yes, anyone can record. Is everybody good at it? Hell no. I've listened to your current album, and when people are artists, it's different than when someone has the access to the technology. Everybody has access to the technology, but there's still an art to art. I can't explain. It's like an honor for me to even talk with you guys. And if you're hanging out with the Copelands, I understand.
Fantastic.
Well, that's very nice.
Well, I remember we used to stay at Miles's house in London, and I remember Stuart as a 12-year-old boy playing drums in a cellar, and he's bashing out this. He was fantastic, even at 12 years old, And when you say stick at it, you'll do all right. Yeah, I should have said if you ever need a bass player. But then again,
you know what? I've probably never told you this, Derek. But at one point, and I can't remember exactly when it was. I went over there. Miles had this lovely big house at St John's Wood, didn't he?
Yeah.
And Stuart would rehearse, practice with his drums down in the cellar. And he said, "Could you come over and play bass? Because I'm auditioning guitar players because I'm trying to get this band together."
Yeah.
So
marvelous.
I just went along to play a bit of bass. And about 2 months later, I went to see this band that he'd put together. They were called The Police, but Sting wasn't in them. I mean, it was before all that, so...
Is that Henry Padovani?
Possibly. If I'd played bass a little bit better, Derek, and if I could sing really, really well, I could have been Sting.
You could have been. Well, you've got the haircut.
No.
Derek, you had played with Stuart later on. I read something about that. Now, I see his style. He's a fantastic, kick-ass drummer. However, I just have to ask you this question. Does he purposely change up his drumming style every time he plays, or is he just that wild?
I think, I did work with him. We did some music for a film for Lucasfilms, and he'd got a drum set up there, and he said, grab your bass, let's have a jam. Anyway, I started playing a shuffle or swinging, he said, don't swing, he said, just rock and roll, straight ahead. And then he said to me, Sting plays downstrokes with a plectrum. and I played down and up, and I'd play with my fingers and everything. What I really noticed about him was he really drives everything. And it was very difficult to slow him down or get him to sway from that straight ahead driving rhythm, which I thought was fantastic. And it was quite a lesson for me, really.
He's a great, fantastic drummer. I've just heard him in different contexts. I don't know if it's like intentional that he changes stuff up. I don't know if he has the Keith Moon approach or the Kenny Jones approach. That's what
I think what he brought to the Police was the use of delays on hi-hats and things, Mm-hmm. So he brought a little bit of extra technology into his playing to allow him to make the sound more complicated, if you like.
Yeah, well, most especially the reggae kind of feel, mm-hmm. because that's happened a lot over the years. That there's been a sort of minority type of music, and what it then takes for it to be really popular is for the white boys to take it off.
Yeah,
it's true.
Because it's not going to get through otherwise. To be honest, it's probably true right from the Beatles. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously we were fairly young when the Beatles came out, about 14, and I don't know about Derek, but I mean, I'd never heard of Smokey Robinson, but you thought that You've Really Got a Hold on Me was just the most fantastic thing you'd ever heard. Whether you'd have thought that when it was. If you'd heard the Smokey Robinson version, I'm not sure at that time. I don't think we were sort of ready for it, But once it's wrapped up in a kind of different package, suddenly it becomes accessible. And I always feel with that, with Police, it sort of made the whole reggae thing really acceptable and commercial.
Yeah, but they were great songs as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Songwriting was fantastic.
But they might have done them in a different style, mightn't they?
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
But absolutely, you're right.
But every time, a Police record comes on, I think, wow, how on earth did he come up with that, And still doing it. So all credit to them. Yeah. And a great guitarist in Andy Summers as well.
Yeah.
I think his chord playing.
Absolutely.
Sublime.
Since the Police were coming around this time, I know we're going into the I Love You period. This is leading up to. I just wanted to touch base on this. To me, I Love You is just such a great song. I just have to say that.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I mean, it's one of those things, where did that song come from? It just came down to me from nowhere. I sat at the piano and within half an hour, I got the whole thing. And lucky enough to get it recorded because the band didn't like it.
Since then, I never look back. It's almost like living a dream. And ooh, I love you.
The producer liked the song, and basically that song is just me and the drummer and the string section. Yeah, Colin's not on it. Colin Cooper, the singer. Pete, the guitarist, played the solo that I wanted him to play. It was my solo. I just wanted him to play it. And the rest is just me and Nicky Hopkins, the pianist.
You could have changed the world with that song. You changed the world with that song.
Yeah, I just wish we'd have toured with it. That's the sad thing. We just fell apart,
Wow. That's unfortunate because that song is that quintessential where it probably could have just... I'm not one of those people that you could have went solo, man, but dude.
No, I think we could have taken it all the way if we'd have just got our heads down and thought about it, because after one hit record, I mean, we couldn't get it right, was one hit record. We had I Love You, which was another one. I mean, who knows what would have happened.
There were, as with all bands, certain tensions, in the group, and the most obvious tension was really between the people who had quite wide musical influences, and I would say that me and Derek were the best example of that, and other people who were concentrating on one sort of more narrow path. If you're going to think, well, I really want to be a Chicago blues man and nothing else, you're not going to be that comfortable with having to go on to a teeny bopper program to sing a pop song. So there
Yeah.
were problems there.
But there you are. I mean, it's there, and I'm very lucky to have had the opportunity to get it recorded, and it became a hit. There it is. Yeah,
And
I'm
all
very
these
grateful.
things, it's an awful long time ago, all these things happen. And you look back now and you think, well, there's a certain inevitability to certain things that happened. And there are mistakes that people make, And yeah, you have to be grateful that you've had some success, and that you've done something which so many people would give their right arm to do. If they
Right.
did that, they wouldn't be able to play guitar, but you know what I mean.
That current organization now, please forgive me, I'm not up to date on who's in the current Climax Blues Band group.
Nobody.
And so they're just licensing the name and they're just going out and getting gigs.
Well,
I mean, please
what-
forgive my ignorance.
No, it's okay. What happened was I left about 1983, and then I went back, and I went back because they needed somebody to help them out as a bass player. So I went back, and but I was paid as a session man. I got paid by the gig. I wasn't I was no longer a part of the band. And then Peter, the guitarist, and Colin, they parted ways. Pete went to Germany. Colin carried on with a bunch of guys from where we lived in Stoke-on-Trent, Stafford, Stoke-on-Trent. And they carried on as the Climax Blues Band with Colin as the lead vocalist, the guy,
Yeah.
Then he passed away, but they carried on. So they got another singer that had a deep voice, sounded a bit like him. They still carry on now and still go on the road, calling themselves the Climax Blues Band, but with no original members, which is, to me, is a bit odd.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of bands do it, of course. I mean, it riles a bit when you see video of them saying, "I would like to play this song. This song has means so much to us, guys," and they sing couldn't get it right. I think, well, you weren't in it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I did go
But
and
it is
see
like
them once.
But we call them the tribute band.
Yeah. I went to America a couple of years ago to just because it was the band's 50th anniversary, and I went to a friend of mine over in Seattle, put a band together for me, and I turned up in Seattle to just to play a few gigs, few concerts, because it was the 50th year. Anyway, the current Climax Blues Band had this campaign against me. How dare I go out and be the Climax Blues Band?
How dare you go and sing a song that you're outright right?
It was one of these things that tried, threatening lawsuits and all this stuff. And anyway, I was only there for about 5 or 6 weeks. I got it off my chest. I got to play "I Love You" live, sing it live. Went down a storm, couldn't get it right. Everybody loved it, and I came back, and that was it. So, but to be told I couldn't do that, I thought, yeah, well, how on earth can you say that? I co-wrote the songs. But there you are. Funny people.
The fallacy is that only happens to Black artists. I thought, here you go.
Yes.
The Platters, none of them are original. Or, hey, you see the Supremes out there, none of them are Mary Wilson, Diana Ross, and Florence Ballard.
Temptations.
Yep. Oh, perfect
just
example.
a
I think
label,
there's
isn't
several
it?
Temptation groups out there now. None of them, all of them dead except Otis, obviously. But
But I always say, because obviously we've talked about these things. But I've always said today, would you rather be a guy in a band who's singing somebody else's songs, or would you rather be the guy who was in the band that wrote those songs, recorded those songs, and every time somebody else sings it, you get the royalties?
Yeah, hopefully.
cha-ching.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
So let's talk about Shadowman.
Yeah, Richard, off you go.
Well, a couple of years ago, is it now? Possibly. There came out a biography of Climax Blues Band that was written by Derek and this established kind of writer and publisher called Robert Forsyth. And we all contributed, a lot of the content to this book. And it's a really nice book. It's thick, it's heavy, it's got lots of pictures in it. It was a kind of limited edition, but
I'll go and find it.
Yeah, this is because this is radio. Derek will show you a picture of it. It'll work very, very well.
Derek,
Anyway,
that's the coolest room I've ever seen. I love that bedroom. My wife would be super happy. She wants a headboard like that.
oh, your wife's probably been in that bedroom.
Don't tell anybody.
Any road. One of the stories that there you go. Derek, listeners, Derek is now showing the cover of the Climax Blues Band biography, which is called Using the Power. And he's pointing to a very handsome 18-year-old on the cover. This is working very, very well. Yes, excellent. Anyway,
Beautiful pictures.
yes,
Yeah.
there's a story in it about obviously when you're making albums, you try lots of different things. Some of it gets finished, some of it doesn't get finished. And there was a song that I brought to the band called Shadowman, and it got as far as, I would say we were probably about halfway through the recording of it. In other words, the sort of basic stuff had been put on. And it was sounding good enough that when Miles Copeland came in to hear how we were getting on, he heard it and he said, "There's your next single, lads." This is before we couldn't get it right. He said, "That's the next single." Anyway, and there may or there may not be a connection with that, with the fact that it never got on the album. So anyway, it didn't get on the album, but I always sort of remembered it. So when the book came out, I said to Derek, "Hey, because we were saying, I was ashamed that song never got onto the album, wasn't it? Because there were other songs that me and Derek wrote, which later, in particular, the beginning of Extra, which on CD releases, it did get onto the album. And there was a CD release that said it had Shadowman on it, but actually it was this beginning bit to Extra that it had on it. They got the title wrong. So we said, well, look, why don't we have a go at actually recording the song again?
Shadowman, come carry me home tonight. Shadowman, Shadowman, come carry me home tonight.
So we did that, and it's quite interesting because Derek lives in Mallorca and I live, just outside London. But with the magic of the digital recording medium, we managed to do this song, and we did it. We thought that was good fun, wasn't it? And why don't we do a few more? And so we started this process of throwing ideas forwards and backwards and gradually sort of doing a collaborative writing thing by basically, a sort of conversation, over the airwaves, and gradually building up these songs and building up the recordings. And then the thing started to get some sort of shape to it. So, I think that I don't know if you got this when you listened to it, Michael, but it's the whole album is a kind of narrative. There's a definite story to it, and certainly is for us anyway, and a sort of feel which goes through the album, starting from when we were sort of 13, 14, to something about the modern day, that what we live in. So that was it really. It started off as a one-off, and it turned into a whole album.
Yeah,
as we would call it in the old-fashioned
and
way.
very enjoyable as well. It was
Yeah,
it was conceived really. Most of it was conceived during the lockdown period as well. So when we were all locked away in our wherever we were, we were able to communicate with each other and be creative.
yeah.
And that's how I see the whole thing. It was well, it just was creative. It was creative
Anybody
effort.
will know, if you can get a partnership together, which is totally collaborative, and I would say lacking in ego, then it is a very enjoyable thing. So, we never argued about anything because if you sensed, oh, I've got this idea, I quite like it, but Derek isn't exactly throwing himself in the air. You just think, oh, we'll ditch that one and get another idea
Yeah, try
because
this.
we know that we're going to keep on coming up with ideas. And the same thing with songs. I mean, we ditched several ideas. I think we probably started and got rid of, at least half a dozen songs
Well, I mean, there
before.
are the
Yeah,
almost completed songs that never made this particular album. So
yeah,
it's probably something that we can look at for the future.
yeah. Because it didn't
Yeah.
sort of fit into the feel, the narrative. We didn't feel particularly comfortable with some of the things.
It's an enjoyable process anyway. I've always loved
Yeah.
coming up with ideas. You start with nothing and you
And
end
what
up
was fun
hopefully with
was,
something good.
I mean, obviously it's not the same as sitting in the same room, because in the same room you can have an instantaneous sort of judgment, if you like, and you get these little sparks that happen. So it was different from that. But there was, I don't know if you felt this, Derek. I'd send something off to you and say, "Here, I've done my bit. Can you think of something to go on that?" And then I'd get these wave files, come back, and stick them into the mix, not knowing at all what it was going to be, and I'd put it on, and there was never a point when I thought, oh my God, how am I going to tell him that's terrible? Every time, you put it in, you go, oh, great. And then you think, oh, I've got something I can put on that now and send that back. And so it was just a
Yeah,
joy.
yeah, yeah. That's right.
Behind Shadowman, the title of that specific song, what exactly is the meaning behind Shadowman?
Well, when I wrote that, it was supposed to be for Colin Cooper to sing because, how shall I put it? Colin liked to drink, and he liked to drink from the moment that he got up in the morning to the time he went to bed. So I sort of the idea was, it started with the idea of somebody just waking up pissed or with a hangover or whatever phrase you might say. And so that's how it started, that feeling of, oh my goodness.
The
And
blues.
then there are some words that in there that I can't remember what they mean, but it's got a nice sort of feel to it. So the actual why Shadowman, I don't know. Why I am the walrus, I don't know either.
Well, see, when you said the story of how you recorded the album and versus the title that I just asked for, my
Yes.
perception of what I pictured, even though like we're talking now, and when I listened to the music and I listened to the way it was recorded, it sounded like as if you guys did it live in the studio. So
Yeah.
before you said that, I thought it was just all done takes, and I was going to ask about personnel and all that stuff. But more than that, I thought it was more like a Native American type of approach, like, hey, the Shadow Man, and then this music was birthed through. That's what my
No, it
preconceived.
was it was about somebody being drunk and maybe seeing shadows on the wall, and
Ah,
this whole idea that the bogeyman's gonna get you, and he's just woken up and he's had nightmares, and I
well, that
think
that completely changes the. To me, that like makes it even much more like intriguing. Let's just put it that way.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it was nothing was obviously played live. I mean that started. I think I just put an acoustic guitar on, and I sang it as a guide, and then said to Derek, "You've got to copy my singing exactly, Derek." I didn't say that, but he already knew it, and we still had the sort of demo that Climax had done as well as a guide. We just sped it up a bit, and then
Well,
just
when
gradually added things. And you're talking about other personnel. The guy that we used on a couple of tracks is a very good friend of mine called Richard Martin, who plays sax, and he's a lovely player. So he's playing sax on Shadowman and on Waiting for Payday, which to me sounds absolutely like a Climax track, and he sounds great on that.
the
Yeah.
one song that I really like stood out to me personally that touched me was the "I'm Crying," and that's
Oh, wow.
because the layers and just the way the song is together, and it's could be any era piece.
How strong is the will to share a game with all the thrills? How strong are we now, surrendering to how love feels? And I'm crying. Yes, I'm crying. I'm still crying. I'm crying.
Just to put an extra element into that particular song, that started off by me recording the opening riff of it, because you're going to play it in a minute, aren't you? The opening riff of it, I'm playing on a bouzouki, which is a kind of folk instrument. It's got 4 sets of double strings, and it's tuned in a very strange way. So it started off with that, and that was it. And I sent that to Derek, and he started turning it into a song. So that had a genesis from a completely non sort of rock background.
Crosby, Stills and Nash, it reminds me of the intro, actually.
Did
Great.
they use a bouzouki as well then?
Well, probably not, but it's just,
It sort of
very,
sounds
very,
like 12,
very catchy. It's great.
it sort of sounds like a 12-string acoustic, doesn't it? Really.
When is your release going to be available for download?
Derek.
I don't know, actually.
Oh,
I thought you were involved with that.
Right. Well, it's available on Bandcamp. We've got a lead single coming out, which is "Time's Not on Our Side," which is it's a song about climate change.
It's only a matter of time. The time's not on our side.
And that is being released on your streaming platforms Friday the 21st of January, and it'll be on Spotify and Apple Music and all these other things I don't really know about. And then the whole album will be coming out, I think it's about mid-March.
Is there any plans, hopefully, to take it on the road? Possibly.
Well, that would be fantastic, really. I mean, I'd love to come back to America. It's the logistics of putting it all together, and the COVID thing has destroyed a lot of it. And I just don't know. I just don't know whether anybody would even be able to put it together. It's just getting promoters interested, agencies interested.
Yes.
Bums on seats, I always say. That's what it's about. But it would be great to play it all live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd have to be playing acoustic guitar and a little bit of piano and a little bit of accordion all at the same time.
Yeah. Well.
And what was the other instrument you said?
Accordion. Bouzouki. Bouzouki.
There you go, the bouzouki.
I'm not sure I'd want to. I've been playing in folky bands for the last 20 years, and the last time we played good gigs. We played all the big festivals in the UK and such. And I did one gig at this big festival, and with my bouzouki, I started playing it, and it was about a semitone out of tune to everybody else, and it takes so long to tune up. I just thought I'm just going to soldier on and hope nobody notices.
Well, gentlemen,
Cool.
it's been a pleasure having you guys on. If anyone is interested, you can check out the book called Using the Power, which was published by Moonshine Editions, which is the biography of Climax Blues Band. Also coming out, which is what this interview is about, is The Shadowman by Holt and Jones, Derek and Richard. Gentlemen, I really appreciate you guys being on today. And everyone, please check on the links after this interview and find the release of their new song, Time's Not on Our Side. It's your Dockmaster Michael Ochelano. Thank you for listening. To find out more about the Starboard podcast, look me up on Facebook. That's Dockmaster Mike on Facebook. And there you can find links to our guest and to our past podcast episodes.